Something's wrong. The boys are nowhere to be found.
Feeling anxious, I searched places where they might be, but they were nowhere to be seen. Feeling uneasy, I am Rebecca, a 32-year-old housewife. I have a son who just turned 5 this year. You might call me a doting parent, but my son Knox has such a handsome face that he could become a model. He's my pride and joy. My husband Arlo is a company employee. He doesn't have much interest in parenting, so I'm taking care of my son, mostly by myself. It's fun being with Knox, who is nice, but when I hear my friends talk about going to the beach or going to an amusement park with their families, I can't help but feel envious. Arlo has no interest in family outings whatsoever. He comes home late on weekdays and he lounges around the house on weekends. He doesn't even take Knox to the park. We never dine out either. If I say something like, "Why don't we go out to eat since we haven't done that in a long time?" he immediately gets into a bad mood, and in the worst case scenario, lightning strikes.
You're a full-time housewife, so eating out is out of the question. You've got to be kidding me.
He'd say, "Since the situation is like this, even for a single meal out, it is even more difficult when it comes to hobby activities. I love watching movies in a movie theater, and I used to go with Arlo often before our son was born. But since Knox came into our lives, we've never been to a movie theater together. At most, we stream movies at home, but it's just not the same as watching them on the big screen with powerful sound. Every day I wake up, prepare meals, send my husband off, take Knox to kindergarten, do the cleaning and laundry, go shopping, watch TV, have lunch, pick up Knox, let him play at the park, prepare and eat dinner, clean up, and go to bed. It's boring repeating the same thing day after day. My friends told me that I should get a job if I was so bored, and when I talked to my husband about it, lightning struck again.
Say that after you've perfected your housework. The food is bad, the shirts are wrinkled, and just the other day, my slippers weren't where they should have been when I got home. You should know your place.
I lived in constant fear of my domineering husband. Then one day, out of the blue, my husband suggested we go camping as a family. I was puzzled because my husband, who usually has little interest in family events, suddenly brought this up.
I ran into Peter's mom on my way home from work today. Do you remember Peter? He was Knox's classmate in kindergarten. She was telling me about the campsite they always go to. When I said, "That sounds like fun," she said, "Why don't you come along?" And invited us. Why don't you come along and invite us? I used to go camping a lot in the past. It will be cooler there, and I'm sure it'll be fun.
My husband was completely set on going. I'm not an outdoorsy person, but I realized that without such an opportunity, we couldn't create happy summer memories as a family. So I decided to accept the invitation to camp. The campsite was in a cool highland area where the air was clean, about a 2-hour drive away. I knew the name of the place, but it was the first time I had ever been there, as it was inaccessible and difficult to come by public transportation.
Welcome, Rebecca and Arlo. We've been waiting for you. Did you get stuck in traffic?
Peter's mom greeted us with a smile as we arrived at the parking lot and got out of the car. Her name is Juliana. Our houses are very close, so we bump into each other on the way to a store or at the park, but we're not particularly close friends. She always dresses flashy, with sparkling earrings and rings. I don't judge people by their clothing, but she's a type of person I'm not very comfortable with.
Welcome, accompanied by who appeared to be her husband, and Peter welcomed me.
Her husband had a friendly smile, but perhaps he is shy as he didn't speak much.
Knox, let's play.
Yeah, let's play. Peter happily ran towards us. Knox was also excited. Peter proudly showed us how to catch lizards and where to find ants' nest, and Knox and Peter were having fun playing together, which made me smile and finally put my mind at ease.
You see, coming here was a good idea. Now, should we prepare for a barbecue? You bought good beef, right?
On the other hand, I felt something strange about my husband, who was unusually enthusiastic. We had a barbecue that evening. My husband, who had been so enthusiastic earlier in the day, was now drinking beer and slumped over after boasting about the beef as much as he wanted. The scene of Juliana chatting with him was like a girls' bar. Since it was a campsite, Juliana, who was wearing a lot of flashy accessories and heavy makeup, looked out of place. On the other hand, Peter's father surprised me with a cooking skill like a barbecue master. I helped with cutting vegetables and flipping meat. As I helped, I became completely comfortable with Peter's father. We learned that we shared a love for movies and TV shows, and we had a lot of fun talking about movies that night. When Peter's father and I realized that we had been deep in conversation and looked around, it was already late at night. What's more, no one else was around. We said goodnight thinking that everyone must have gone to sleep, and we entered our respective tents. I found Knox sleeping with Peter, but Arlo was there. I tried calling him, but his phone seemed to be out of range. I was worried about him, and Arlo finally returned about 20 minutes later.
Where have you been? I've been so worried, I said.
Well, the stars were incredibly beautiful. I got lost in them. I'm sorry for making you worry. I'll make sure to tell you next time, before I go.
I was surprised to see my husband, who's a domineering man and seldom apologize obediently. Did nature soothe his soul? The next day, we planned to spend a relaxing afternoon at the campsite and head home in the evening. Peter's father and I were again having a good time talking about movies after lunch, and once again, everyone was gone. Felt like deja vu from last night.
Hey, where's everyone? They were here just a while ago.
Huh? Really? Where could they have gone?
I'll go look for them. Knox, Peter, I looked for a place in the campground where they might be, but I couldn't find them. While shouting their names, I looked around for them behind trees and objects. Since Knox and Peter loved playing pretend adventures, they might be hiding somewhere quietly. However, it didn't seem normal that I couldn't find them anywhere, even after searching for them extensively. I tried calling my husband, but his phone was out of range again, and Juliana's as well. I was becoming increasingly worried, and my heart was beating faster and faster, so I hurried back to Peter's father.
Something's wrong. I can't find Knox or Peter. Can you help me search for them, please?
There, Rebecca, calm down. Since Juliana and Arlo are also missing, they're probably with those two.
I wanted to think so too, but I still felt uneasy. Well, it might be the case, but I can't shake this feeling of anxiety. Could you please help me look for them? We split up to search the forest, but we couldn't find any clues. My husband and Juliana were still out of reach. It just didn't make sense. I figured this out by walking around myself, but most areas within the campsite had proper cell reception. I thought, no way, and headed for the parking lot. My husband's car was gone just as I suspected. Peter's family's car was still there. It was clear that my husband had gone somewhere with Juliana and the kids. But where on earth have they gone? And why didn't they leave a single message? It was all so perplexing. I immediately called Peter's father and we discussed. Eventually, we decided to involve the police. Peter's father and I were at the police station in the village at the foot of the campsite about 30 minutes later. Mom, upon seeing us, the kids came running, tears streaming down their faces.
I'm so glad you're safe.
I've been worried.
I said.
Are you okay?
We hugged the boys and reassured them. They were found walking alone on a street a short distance from the campground by a passerby who called the police, and they were safely taken into custody. They were already at the police station when we called the police, so we came to pick them up immediately. After answering a series of questions for the police records, we returned to the campsite. As we drove back to the campground, I asked them some questions. We already knew by this point that the culprits who had left the children behind were my husband and Juliana. However, I asked carefully so as not to ask a leading question.
Knox, Peter, you must have been scared when you were left alone. What did Dad and Peter's mom say?
I asked.
Well, you see, Dad and Peter's mom were playing pretend adventures. They said the car was a secret base, so we joined them and played together. But then Dad said, let's go for a ride. So we did. And then Dad said, wait here for a moment. So Peter and I got out of the car,